Hello there, welcome to my channel and my review, my member requested review of Oldboy, a film released in 2003. It is directed by Park Chan-wook. This film was requested by Zarati Ryan, which is just like the best name ever. Sounds like a superhero name, Zarati Ryan. Anyway, Zarati, great patron and member of mine for the longest time, but yeah, this is a member request that he put in. It's been a long time coming. So this film is part of a trilogy. Park Chan-wook did a Vengeance Trilogy, 3 separate stories but with that theme of vengeance running throughout. I've not seen the other 2. I am going to get around to them, particularly now since I've watched this again for the second time. I had seen this film back, I think, around about 2005 when it kind of was doing the rounds on DVD and whatnot. It made quite an impact back then, but it's never been one of those movies that I've kind of rushed back to. Probably for obvious reasons for anyone who's seen it, maybe not for anyone who's seen it. I'll say this much, it is an incredible film, but there's plenty of stuff in it that kind of makes you wince. So the story centres around this character called Oldboy, played by Choi Min-sik, and he is basically abducted. He's this businessman, he's a bit of a lout, he's a bit of a drunkard, as we see at the start of the film, quite tubby, strips off in a police station at one point. In a scene that goes on a little bit too long, I feel. There's a couple of scenes in this film where I feel like the gag is stretched, or the point that is being made is being laboured a little bit, but those moments are few and far between, but this was one of them. There's a scene in a police station where he's just louting about, he's drunk, he's peeing all over the place and taking his top off, but it fills you in on who this guy is, what kind of man he is. But he's abducted, and he doesn't know who he's abducted by, but he's held captive for 15 years. And in that time, he basically, like any man would, I guess, goes a little bit nuts to a large degree, and he's consumed with vengeance. After 15 years, he's just let out, and his kidnapper, his captor, kind of gets in touch with him and says, "You got 5 days to figure out why did I let you out?" And it's this film about him trying to find out who'd held him captive and to get vengeance. Now that concept alone to me is really intriguing. Just that as a setup is just like, why would anybody do this? Why would somebody lock you up for 15 years, not even tell you why they've done it, and then just let you out one day? That's a great concept. It's a real great hook that brings you into the mind of this central character who, as I say, isn't a likeable character. When we meet him at the beginning, he's not a very nice man. He's not someone I would particularly want to hang out with. But anybody going through what he's been through, I would have some sense of sympathy for them. So because of that, you're instantly kind of brought into his world, and you're kind of on his side, really. You can understand why this guy wants vengeance. But like all great movies about vengeance, really, it shows us that vengeance is not something to be pursued. Justice is something to be pursued. Vengeance leads down an avenue that only ends in destruction. Now that might be a dead giveaway as to where this might all end up, but I think anyone who's seen any movies about the subject might have a clue as to the fact that this ain't going to end well for certain characters. Now, of course, there is a big twist in this film, so once we do learn what it is that this man was placed in prison for, and why it is that he was put through the ringer in the way that he was, it gets really twisted. It gets really dark. It's like it's a shocking revelation, and a very, very kind of well thought out plan of vengeance that I don't remember working all that well when I first watched it, I remember thinking, no, I'm not quite sure I'm buying it to the extent that they want me to. But I think this time around, watching it again, knowing where it was going to end up, I knew, I knew what holes I was kind of looking for, and I think they do actually do a pretty good job of covering their bases. Ook does a good job of making sure bases are covered enough for you to suspend disbelief and go along with the main plot thread, which, like I say, is this really elaborate plan of vengeance. The reasons for that vengeance are quite twisted, although you still can't help but feel a certain level of sympathy for both sides. Ultimately, this is a movie, I feel, about taming your tongue, about getting a hold of, loose lips sink ships, so to speak. I feel like that's what the film is about. We can say the most innocuous things at times, but those things can destroy lives and have repercussions that last through the ages. And I think this film does a really good job, a really twisted, dark job of showing that, of highlighting that. Now, ultimately, you can look at what this guy said, and you can understand why anybody would have said it, or why anybody would have, there's something he says that basically led to this path of vengeance. And you look at it and you think, well, that could be me, to be honest. I that could have been me who said that. And it is that thing where you get to the end and it's like, well, if you think in these terms, you'd have to watch everything that came out of your mouth. You'd have to become a monk and not say anything. But I think the key there is don't gossip. If you know something about someone else, you take it to that person. You don't take it to other people. And I think because of that, stuff happens. This guy says it to someone, and it all snowballs from there, spirals out of control, and that's what the film is about. And I think it does, like I say, a really good job of showing us that notion. Choi Min-sik as Ode-soo is really incredible in this film. I've only seen him in a couple of other films. One was Lucy, and another one was another Korean film, Shiri, I think it was called. But here he's incredible in this. Now I watched the Arrow Blu-ray of this because I've bought the box set. Finally got around to watching it, and I watched one of the special features on it, and it showed a bit of just what the actor went through to get into shape for the role. And at the beginning of the film, when we see him take his shirt off in the police station, he's got a tubby bit of tub on him. He's not in the best shape. And then when we go to seeing just, not that too far after that scene, when he's been caught and he's been in prison for 10 years, he's in great shape. He's punching a wall like Robert De Niro in Raging Bull, and he's looking like you wouldn't want to mess with this guy. So like just purely from physical terms, he puts the work in for the performance side of things, but emotionally as well. There are scenes in this. Like I say, he's not a nice character. He doesn't have that many redeeming qualities, but I can't help but root for this guy, and I think that's down to Sik. To be honest, I think what he does with it, how he brings us in, showing us this dishevelled man when he's finally released after 15 years. And there's one particular sequence in it when he has to eat a live octopus, and I've not seen the remake. I don't know if they repeated this scene in the remake or anything, but some people may question why what's this all about. It's just sick. It's gross. It is sick and it is gross, but as the character says to the person in the restaurant that serves him this octopus, he wants something alive. He's been dead for 15 years. He's not seen another human being other than through a TV screen for 15 years. He's not had contact with life for 15 years. And this, yeah, this eating of an octopus, it's this kind of symbolic way of him literally ingesting life into him, because he's just been that void of it for so long. It's a disgusting sequence, and from what I can tell, well, I'm pretty certain, in fact, that there's no CGI involved. This is a real squid being eaten by this actor, who, as I say, just that alone is pretty grim. You know, I wouldn't do it. I'll say that much. But it makes me want to vomit. When I first watched it, it really made me want to vomit. And when I watched it this time around, it made me want to vomit. The film is also quite famous for a particular action set piece, which is this fight sequence that takes place in this kind of long tunnel, this long corridor, in which our main character goes up against a whole horde of gangsters armed with only a hammer. And it just feels very visceral because the camera doesn't pull away. It doesn't, do over the shoulder shots, cut to a wide shot, cut to a mid shot. It's not cut together that way. It's all done in one take, and it's really believable. You look at it, you see this guy getting wasted. He's not just taking all these guys out with nice moves, and they're coming at him one at a time like a typical action movie. They're all trying to get to him, and at times they do, and at times they get him down on the floor as they're kicking him in, and he's just. It's only for the wild swinging of this hammer that he keeps taking the odd one out here and there, and then getting the upper hand, and then getting knocked down again. And it's brutal, it's bloody, it's violent, it's very visceral. It's a really incredible fight sequence, a really great action set piece. I think it does show a certain level of style over substance at times. The film in general, I think. Now, again, that's not to say it has no substance. As I say, I've already gone into what I think this film is about. It is a warning. It is a reminder of the things, taming the tongue, getting control of the words that come out of our mouth and not just spitting stuff out. Everything we say has consequences. There is substance there. But I do think there's a lot in this film that is about style. It is about getting a rise out of you, the audience member, about making you feel something that is visceral. Yuji Tae as the main villain is also very good. Again, this is a man he's despicable, because one, when we learn what his past is, it doesn't really make you warm to the guy. But then knowing what he's done to our central character obviously ain't going to win any brownie points. And yet, this might just be me, I still can't help but feel a certain level of sympathy or empathy for this guy. He's twisted. His whole perspective on life is twisted, and to a large extent it's his own doing. But I still can't help but feel for him in some way, that he's been so consumed by vengeance, because it's not just one character that's on a vengeance mission. There's two people in this, and both are consumed with vengeance, and ultimately it destroys them both. But I just find that both of them are characters who, on paper, are not people I want to follow, and yet these two actors kind of get me on board with both sides, and kind of make me flip-flop as to who the villain is and who the hero is. The truth is, there is no hero in this story. They're both very, very flawed human beings. Now, I have tried to skirt around a lot of things in this movie because I really don't want to give anything away that's, if you've not seen it before. I don't know how good of a job I've done, but I've tried to be as spoiler-free as possible. I don't feel I can go into much else without giving spoilers. As I say, there's certain things I've said here that already are really touching close to being a spoiler. But yeah, when you get to the twist, when you get to the ending, and you see how twisted it is, I think that's make or break territory for me. you'll get to that ending and you're either completely out or you're just like so blown away by the journey you've been taken on that you're just like, I appreciate that. So yeah, I do sit into the latter camp, although I will say this isn't a film that I want to revisit constantly. It'll probably be another decade before I get to this, because it is one of them. But like I say, it's an experience. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. I think it's an incredible piece of work. If you've never seen any Korean cinema before and you're not put off too much by darkness and violence, let this be your go-to. Otherwise, if anything I've said doesn't sound like your cup of tea, then definitely stay clear. But yeah, thank you to Zarati for requesting this one. Thank you for being a member of my channel. If you would like to become a member of my channel, do click that join button just below this video and you can have a look at the perks that are available for members. Alternatively, you can go over to Patreon and become a patron also. But yeah, thank you, Zarati. Thank you to you guys for watching, and until next time, cracking.